You ever walk into a place and just feel every eye on you? Not because you're important or anything, but because they all know you don't belong, or maybe they just don't care? That's how it is at the county horse auction hot. Dry air hanging heavy, the smell of old hay and old sweat, and nobody really watching except to see what's worth the trouble. I was there that day, leaning on a busted fence post, blending into the dust, not looking for anything. And then they brought him out this sad-looking gelding, ribs like piano keys, one leg dragging like he was trying to leave it behind. People chuckled, called him a project. The auctioneer barely got out the opening bid. $1, folks, come on, don't all jump at once. And everyone laughed, not even trying to hide it. But I saw something different, or maybe I just saw myself. You know what I mean? The horse had these eyes not wild, just tired, like he'd been beaten by life but hadn't quite let go. I raised my hand and said $1. The auctioneer squinted at me, waiting for a real offer, but no one else spoke. "Sold to the man in the back," he called, and the crowd snickered. Some guy said, "Ought to pay you to take him," and I just nodded, took the rope, and led that horse out of there, both of us silent, both of us limping a little. On the walk to my truck, I told him, "Name's Samson. Not sure what to call you yet, but we'll get there." He didn't fight, didn't flinch, just climbed into the trailer like he'd done it 1,000 times. My place wasn't much a handful of acres left after years of drought and bad luck. Barns leaning like old men in the wind, fences that only kept the honest livestock inside. But I got him settled in the last good stall, spread some straw, filled a bucket, and sat on the porch under the wide, empty sky, feeling the weight of everything I'd lost and not quite sure why I just spent my last dollar on a broken-down horse. Sometimes I come to auctions just to see what gets left behind. Maybe it's habit, maybe it's penance. Ever since I lost my son, Luke, and buried my old Mustang Cypress, I guess I started collecting ghosts instead of friends. But something about this horse felt different. I called him Dusty the next morning, because that's what he was when I found him covered in more dirt than hope. Days blurred together. I didn't rush him. I fed him, talked to him, let him decide how close to get. He started eating a little more, put weight on that bad leg. When I brushed him, he didn't shy away, just watched me with those eyes like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. One night, I found myself telling him about Luke, how he left after a fight, how I checked every auction thinking maybe I'd see him out there trying to save a horse. I told Dusty he was the first one I'd brought home since, and maybe that's why the stable door stayed open a crack that night, letting the sound of his breathing travel through the dark. With time and oats and no pressure, Dusty started to come back to life. His limp faded, his coat shone, and he watched me like he wanted to trust but couldn't quite remember how. We started in the round pen, no saddle, just a rope halter and patience. He circled, wary but willing, and when he finally turned to face me, head low, I nodded, "Yeah, that's how it starts." Hope, if you're lucky, sneaks up on you like that. Training wasn't about breaking him, just showing him that not every hand hurts. First the saddle blanket, then the saddle, then finally the bit. Every step, he resisted a little less. The first ride, we just walked slow, steady me talking nonsense, him listening with those big, thoughtful eyes. That night, I sipped coffee and watched the world settle, feeling something in my chest loosen for the first time in years. Then, out of nowhere, a truck I didn't recognize pulled up the drive. Shiny, clean too clean. A man got out, tall, my age, but with eyes I'd never forget. Luke, my son. 12 years had passed. He looked at me, hesitated, then said, "Hey, Dad." Turns out, he'd heard about the auction, heard I'd brought home a half-dead horse. We sat at the table, eating stew, filling the silence with half-finished stories. He talked about the ranches he'd worked, the colts he'd trained. When I mentioned Cypress, he just nodded. He was always half wild, he said. After dinner, I showed him Dusty. He looked worse when I got him. I said. Luke ran his hand down the horse's neck and said, "He's got more fight than you think. That limp won't last." His eyes are sharp. We spent a week together, not saying much about the past, working side by side. Luke rode Dusty, and the horse didn't flinch, just a little defiant, as if to say, "I choose who I let close now." One morning, Luke asked if I'd ever thought about showing him at the county fair. I shrugged it off, said I wasn't much for crowds. That evening, I found a flyer for the Spring County Horse Show and a note from Luke. I'll ride him if you let me, or stand by your side if you change your mind. Took me all night to decide, but in the morning, I found Luke in the pasture and said, if you think he's ready, we'll go. 3 weeks we trained, and every day Dusty looked a little more like the horse I'd hoped he could be. The fair was buzzing music, laughter, horses everywhere. Luke led Dusty into the ring, and for the first time, people actually watched. Dusty wasn't a joke anymore. Was strong, shining, moving with confidence. The event was just a trail course, nothing fancy, just gates, poles, a bridge. But it was everything. When Dusty crossed, that bridge ears twitching, hooves steady, a whole crowd clapped. He took second place, beaten only by a young girl on a perfect quarter horse. We didn't care. Dusty had already won. After the show, Luke lingered near the trailer. You thinking about leaving again? I asked. He hesitated, then said, I've got places to go, but I don't know anymore. I told him I wasn't asking him to stay, but there was work to do, fences to fix, pastures that needed someone who cared. I wasn't offering a job, just a placif could decide what to make of it. That night, we sat on the porch, watching the stars blink into place. For once, the silence was comfortable. In the morning, Luke saddled up Dusty, and they rode out beyond the fences, just the two of them, no pressure, no crowd, just moving through the world like they belonged there. When they came back, Luke grabbed a hammer and helped me mend a fence. We worked side by side, the air thick with the smell of hay and old wood. No grand speeches, no big endings, just the steady, quiet rhythm of healing. A week later, Luke was restless. He said a friend in Montana needed an extra hand on a cattle drive. If Dusty's willing, I'd like to take him, he said. I told him, he's your horse now, too. Before he left, I gave him my father's brass spur, told him you can't lead with pressure if you never let up. We shook hands, men who'd finally found something worth holding on to. Watching them drive away, dust rising in the red evening, I didn't feel empty. I felt ready. A letter came a week later. Dusty crossed the river like he owned it. First day, he outworked every other mount. Your writhe wasn't broken, just waiting for the right hand. Maybe I was too. I left the letter on the table, looked out the window at the empty corral, and smiled. Now, out in Montana, Luke sits by a campfire, Dusty grazing nearby, both of them content, at least for now. And me, I finally get it. Sometimes the ones we save are the ones who end up saving us. What do you think? Did I do right by that horse? By my son? Or is this just how life works, broken pieces coming together? Not perfect, just real? Yeah, let me know what you do. Share your thoughts on second chances, forgiveness, or maybe just tell me about a time you saved something nobody else wanted. I'm listening.